Entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. This for UFC Fight Night, Greenville, South Carolina. Things I thought I would never say on an episode of Dog or Pass, or formerly Monkey Beatdown, was the UFC is showing up or going to the thriving metropolis that has about 68,000 people of Greenville.
Long-awaited
South
debut.
Carolina. Cody Saftic in studio with me.
They've been to obscure places in the past, and even though Moncton is considered a major Canadian city, I was surprised that they went to New Brunswick whatsoever. So maybe there's a thriving market of fight fans in Carolina, especially this little pocket. I think Stephen Thompson's close by, Scoggins, his wife Hannah, his brother fights.
And none of them are on this card. It's very, very weird.
But to combat that, all you have to do on any card that people say, wait a second, if I'm from Carolina, I say, wait a second, none of the hometown guys are on this card. Wait a second, none of the people I want to see are, oh, hey, Korean Zombie's on this card, I'll go. And you know, anytime you drop Korean Zombie, the rest of the card does not matter. And I don't mind this offering, but
I guess the only thing that makes sense with it, I did a little bit of research. They have like a single A minor league baseball team that is affiliated with the Boston Red Sox.
It's a single A affiliate. Okay.
I believe it's single A. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. Like, I don't follow that type of stuff whatsoever. So like Dana has a connection to Boston, so on and so forth. But it's really like, it's actually like
that's a mild connection. But
no,
go on.
It's smack dab in the middle of Charlotte, Atlanta, Knoxville, and like Columbia, South Carolina. So it's like you can kind of get from like those places to here in a couple hours. So I bet you this is where the Boston connection comes in. And this is
Greasy
wild.
theory.
This is crazy theory.
Sure.
Wild speculation. Dana has a connection with the Boston Red Sox, the market in Boston, people who have a lot of money in Boston. They go, why don't you go here? We will literally just like basically let you rent the facility for free. And you can get people coming from these other markets. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because like 68,000 people. It's called the Bond Secure Wellness Center.
Yeah,
or something,
I'm gonna counter.
Like
I'm gonna counter grease you right here and say UFC's business over the last little bit, geez, not looking that good. And we're so spread out with these cards. And this card, we're gonna put Korean Zombie on it, but outside of that, we're gonna put a bunch of randoms that we contractually owe fights to. Mm-hmm. We could go to Charlotte. We could go to those
Lineker's on it. Brian Barbarena, like the top three fights have me excited.
No, they're fun fights. They're fun fights. I just mean if you're looking at this card as terms of like money spent on it, it's low.
Oh yeah, they're spending next to
why
nothing.
go to Charlotte where it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to rent this space and it's a big venue,
and we probably won't sell it out because
and when it doesn't sell out, it's gonna look bad. Or we can go to a smaller venue that's gonna pack out and it's gonna be way cheaper.
And it's like 2-3 hours from all of these major city hubs that they can kind of drive in there.
Yeah, and someone mentioned to me when the UFC went to New Brunswick that the venue paid the UFC $250,000.
That's what I'm thinking is
because
one of those
for them it's a big thing too. Hey, we're bringing in an event. They bring in.
It's good for the city. It's good for the town. Like all the hotels in the area get rented out.
You pay to bring in some shitty country music band and it sells 20,000 seats. You bring in some other act, it brings in 10,000 seats. You bring in the UFC, it didn't sell very good in New Brunswick, by the way. But again, it's just another act. So maybe it's the same thing there. They're going to pay the UFC a little bit of money. It's going to be cheaper venue costs. It's mostly just a TV card anyways, which we're going to get out of that. That's one thing I noticed with Bellator. Bellator would go to fucking nowhere. But it's a TV card, right? At the end of the day, the cameras are the same. It projects on TV the same.
And
the local
Ontario,
people,
Thackerville,
the local people in Thackerville, Oklahoma, they don't care. Or Munvane, Kansas, they don't give a shit. You're punching the guy in the face. I'm in. I'm there. In Rama's case, it was just comp tickets from the casino. So good setup.
100%. All right. Before we get into any of that, before we get into any of the fights, we have a giveaway from last week. I believe the UFC winner was somebody with the DK handle Hyperflux. Congratulations.
Hyperflux.
You should.
Congratulations. We're back on YouTube now, by the way. So
back
Hyperflux
on YouTube. We're still on
took
Facebook.
advantage of the good Facebook setup. That's a smart man.
If we're ever off of YouTube again, go back to the Facebook feed. It'll be there. But we figured out what the issue was. It had nothing to do with the MMA stuff. It was just
it's linking.
It was linking for basically our we have a contest for the golf stuff every single week that links to DraftKings, and because it links to DraftKings and it's kind of seen as gambling. We're kind of giving people extra access to gambling. We're just trying to. It's a listeners league with no rakes, so it's like it's a good thing for anybody who wanted to click
technicality
on it.
On
very
the
technicality. We weren't like harboring fugitives or telling people where to get guns or anything on the programming. So like we were pretty scot-free in all of this.
There's some guns on this card we're about to get to, Paul.
100%. I guess I haven't done this in a long time, but odds and lines are subject to change. The website for actual odds. If you or anybody have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Contest.
What is the contest? You told me to tee you up. I did a pretty shitty job of teeing you up there. I just said, hey, contest. Point at you, say contest. What is it?
So there's an actual OG on the card. Matt Wyman hasn't fought since 2014. Anybody. Yeah, and we started the show 5 years ago, but Matt Wyman was the man at the time. Matt Wyman was a guy that had a great skill set. He's a good grinder. He's got good submission defense, good cardio. He was like a Jim Miller back in those days, and it was a super successful style. It got me thinking, Jesus Christ, Matt Wyman. Who are some of the guys from back in that era that you just miss seeing around? And in my case, my answer, you got to leave the show a like. Leave your DK handle. Which throwback UFC fight? It doesn't have to be a world-class guy that you think could compete. Which guy do you miss? And I'm going to throw mine in there. Spencer Fisher. Spencer Fisher never seen a bad fight. He'd go in there and just throw the king. Why is he the king? Because he's the king of those fight of the nights. The fights with Sam Stout, obviously legendary. He had a flying knee over the aforementioned Matt Wyman. And God, I miss watching that. I miss seeing that guy fight. Now, I know there's some new fans to the sport. Maybe you don't remember any of those throwback guys like Yves Edwards. That would be another fucking good pick. Anyway, Pete Spratt. I'll let you guys leave the answer in the comment section, and hopefully you can get those DK bucks. Like the show, DK handle, and which throwback UFC fighter do you miss seeing? Would spice up a card like this?
The answer is Julian Lane.
Julian Lane.
Never bang, bro.
Never fought in the UFC. Two-time Ultimate Fighter veteran. Never fought in the UFC.
Yeah, he couldn't quite hack it. Anyway, main event. Hanato Moicano takes on the Korean zombie, Chan Sung Jung. Moicano is 8,600 minus 190 favorite. Chan Sung Jung 7,600 plus 165. How do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, well, it's the style. Both guys have the style to beat each other. It just depends who's going to implement it. I'm leaning Moicano. I think when you look at Korean Zombie, right? Korean Zombie at his prime, he's in the pocket. He's aggressive. He's got a cast iron chin. He's got great striking. He's aggressive. He takes that time off due to the military service. And maybe he had some injuries prior to that anyways. Comes back against Dennis Bermudez. Smokes Dennis Bermudez. Last fight, looks pretty good to be honest. Gets caught by Yair. But since that Bermudez fight, he took like a year off before the Yair Rodriguez fight. And now it's not quite another year off. But you just don't see a ton out of him. Maybe he's saving himself for the actual fight. But it's very hard to gauge Korean Zombie in that. Are we always going to get a continuously reinvented version? Are we going to get an injury-free version? Or do we got a guy that's probably been plagued with injuries throughout his career? Now he's back in the regular rhythm of training camp. Doesn't train at the, well, I mean, he trains at a high level, sure. But I just mean the rigors of training day in and day out. 32 years old now. Who knows? Very dangerous, sure. But Hanato Moicano, he'll give him trouble. When you look at Korean Zombie's last fight against Yair Rodriguez, Yair, especially in the first 2 rounds, he's given him all sorts of trouble, particularly with the jab and the outside low kick. And he's able to just, Korean Zombie plants his feet. He plants his feet. He tries to wing those shots at you. And the thing with Yair is he starts to get drawn into that brawl, right? He's not just backpedaling the whole time. But all the highlights throughout the first 2 are just massive leg kicks from Yair Rodriguez and that jab. Second round, busts up Korean Zombie, nose is bleeding. In the 3rd and 4th round, he starts to slow down a little bit. His cardio maybe starts being called in question. He also kind of battles periods of inactivity in his career. And then obviously spectacular finish in the 5th round likely saves him on the judges' scorecards. But all the same, phenomenal fight. When I look at Moicano, when I look at the stylistical approach there, it's going to be the same thing. He's a little more mobile than Yair. Not faster, not more mobile than Yair. But he's more technical. He'll be able to stick to the game plan of moving a lot better. And what are his 2 best weapons? He's got a great low kick and he's got a great jab. I don't think he's ever knocked out anybody. He has no TKO finishes on his record. He's not a power puncher. He's got some rear naked chokes.
5 rounds of gas.
That's why I started off by saying both guys got the tools to beat the other guy, is that I see Moicano having the skills there and being able to beat Koreans. If this is a 3-round fight, all day Hanato Moicano. But the 5 rounds is where it now falls into where Korean Zombie is going to be able to win this fight because he pressures him and tires him. And even though Jose Aldo is Jose Aldo, after the end of the 1st round, going into the 2nd round, you really got the impression from Moicano that like he's not in this league. He's getting hurt by these shots and he's fading away. When you look at some of his prior fights, maybe the Zubaira Tuhugov fight. Maybe the 3rd round's not his best outing. The Jeremy Stevens fight, the 3rd round, he basically just splits the whole time. Lands good punches. But that's the round where he really doesn't want to engage Stevens whatsoever, probably because he loses the second. It's 1-1 going into the third. He decides to switch it up a little bit. He's also got an underrated ground game. I don't think it's crazy to think that he goes out there and scores a couple takedowns against Korean Zombie, maybe holds him down for a little bit, but obviously this is shaping up to be a striker versus striker matchup. Do you like the technical guy that's going to move and outpoint him, likely try to pull him into a 5-round situation, or the other guy that, imagine this, Moicano is not known for his stopping power, and he's got a guy that, yes, he's been knocked out by dynamic moves. Like Korean Zombie is known for that vaunted ability to take a punch. But I go back to
particularly just get lost, so you just keep kicking that leg, break down that leg, then you just have a wounded opponent.
Yeah, and I go back particularly to Moicano versus Jeremy Stephens. And Jeremy Stephens has a similar style to Korean Zombie in that he's very flat-footed in his approach. He wings big punches. He's an aggressive guy. He likes to close the pocket. And he's shorter than Korean Zombie. That's important as well. But he's flat-footed. And against Moicano just does exactly that. He picks him from the outside. He stays to the outside. He's moving all the time. Jeremy Stephens is missing on everything. And the whole time it's just Moicano getting leg kicks, getting jabs, getting leg kicks, getting jabs. Stephens is another guy with the cast iron chin. You're not going to knock him out, but you can defeat him via points. But that's a 3-round fight. So now when you spread to a 5-round fight, it becomes an issue. Another thing that kind of, again, I'm going to take Moicano here, but another thing that I'm looking at with Moicano is Moicano's got a really good output. He's good at doubling up guys. What I mean by that, when you look at him versus, say, Brian Ortega, he outstrikes Ortega 109 to 65. Comes apart in the 3rd round, though. That goes back to this is 5 rounds, it might hurt him. But he's doubled up Ortega. Him versus Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar's a fucking man, especially if you want to strike with this guy. 116 to 41 for Renato Moicano. Him versus Cub Swanson. He finishes Cub Swanson in the 1st round. It was shaping up. It was kind of even on the strike stats, but finishes him in the 1st round. He's got good output, whereas Korean Zombie, you think of him with big output, but he misses a ton of fucking punches. He really does. All of his striking stats against opponents are relatively 50-50. He either breaks you down as the fight progresses. So yeah, this is classic. Renato Moicano is going to have to come out to an early lead and play a smart game plan, and Korean Zombie is going to Korean Zombie try to break him down. I'm going to go with Renato Moicano. Dog play is not a bad play here, it really isn't, but I fucked up last time. Aldo and Moicano, I had Moicano there. Maybe I should learn my lesson, but I do like this guy, and that's why I was taking over Aldo. I think Aldo's getting older. He's going to be the past at some point, and this Moicano kid has got a bright future. But you got to lose.
Like what Moicano is good at is like Jose Aldo made that game.
He made that game.
The leg kicks, maybe his boxing's not as good as Jose's is, but similar types of styles. He's obviously a longer, rangier type of fighter, but he was kind of fighting the guy that he knew all of his tricks.
He knew all of his tricks. And again, who knows if it was, oh man, I'm fighting Jose Aldo, and you get a little gun shy. And again, Jose Aldo was hitting really hard in that fight. Like he was fighting a good Jose Aldo fight. You can draw up a lot of excuses, but ultimately this guy's lost twice in the UFC. Both of them are learning experience, and both of them are the 1 and 2 guys. Jose Aldo, former champion, a guy that he's seen better days, but again, a perennial top guy, and Brian Ortega, number 2, 3 guy in the world. There's no shame in losing to those guys. And Moicano is young, maybe young enough anyways, still progressing. I expect a close fight, but I expect a fight that if Moicano fights that better game plan, and it's not an Elias Theodorou, it's not an Aljamain Sterling, it's not a Caitlin Chukagian. This guy's engaging. It's way more exciting. He's in there to fight. But again, that ability to hit the opponent and get out of there before they can hit you back is effective, and it's especially effective with guys of flat-footed stance natures come at you forward. So I'll go with Moicano. Moicano by decision, decent as well. Not ruling out the ground game as well, but he can score 100 significant strikes in 3 rounds. If he goes out there and beats Korean Zombie, he can land above 100 significant strikes, a couple takedowns in the mix, maybe a ground transition. He's got a good ground game. $8,600 on DraftKings. I would be very interested in that. The minus 190, it's coming down a little bit, so I'd like to wait and see what it goes off around fight time. I think if people bust parlays earlier, they lose bets early, they're going to want some action on the main event. They're going to go towards Korean Zombie, natural underdog. You're going to get some dog money on him. He's a fan favorite, so I would wait for that to come down a little bit. But my official pick will be Renato Moicano by decision.
Yeah, I kind of have most of the same mentality as you. I think the leg kicks are going to really add up in this fight. But yeah, the one thing that kind of stops me from making a wager on this is I worry about the 5 rounds.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's got it. We haven't really seen it. He's never been put into that position. And we know that Korean Zombie, he's called a zombie for a reason. The guy is not going to stop moving forward. Sometimes to his own detriment because he runs into a freak show back elbow from Yair Rodriguez at the last final second. But
very fair.
We'll find out. Either way, we move on down the card. We've got John Hands of Stone Lineker, who's begging on Twitter, give me a fight. I can't believe. How do you not just book this guy whenever he, like, if he wants to fight, you let John Lineker fight?
Yeah, and it's not like it's a lack of contenders for him to fight. It's like he's willing to fight everybody, and I'm sure there's not a whole lot of guys willing to fight him, but still,
because it's going to be painful. So
if he wants to fight 6 times a year, sign me up. I'm not going to turn down
every single damn card. Sign me up.
No, because then we're only going to get a year or 2 out of him. Give him 6 fights a year, and let's get 4 more years out of him.
I think that chin could fight every single week. Either way, he takes on Rob Font. These guys have fought before, obviously, and when we were on it, I was very, very passionate about Johnny Lineker going to be able to back up Rob Font. And Rob Font, from what I've seen, I'm sure he's improved, but I don't think much has changed. I don't really see the guy being great off of his back foot. Prove me wrong this week, but like Lineker minus 220, a hungry Lineker coming off of losing to Sandhagen. Well, I think Lineker is going to come in every single fight. He's going to have the same strategy. The guy wings super hard hooks, nothing straight down the pipe. It's just all from the outside. He's going to pressure forward, and those hooks basically try to keep you right in front of him. You got to be able to do what's in Sandhagen. I underestimated what he was able to do in that respect. Is a Sandhagen, he knew the template. The template's out there. People know. You either have to take him down or be able to enter quickly and exit on angles before those hooks hit you. And, Lineker landed a ton of strikes. I think he scored like 54 points.
Yeah, listen,
in
he
a
fought
loss.
a great fight.
It was a hell of a fight.
Yeah, he fought a great fight.
It was close. I think Sandhagen was
the rightful winner. Some people thought Lineker won. I had Sandhagen, I thought he won, but it was a good fight.
It's one of those fights that comes down to like,
what do you judge?
Sandhagen landed more volume, 100%. And then there's always that subjective thing that people go, people are generally watching a fight going, well, Lineker's strikes mean more, which may be true, but we don't really know that.
We don't really know that, but if I hit you 5 times and you hit me once and I appear to be hurt and you're just eating them up like no tomorrow, then they're going to look at it like,
well. Like it was a very, very
he did eat them well, but there was shots that he ate in that fight that you thought, oh, if that was a lesser man, they'd be knocked the fuck out. Yeah. Like he was taking some big shots. Whereas every time John Lineker gets hit, it's almost as if it doesn't faze him. And that's my point on this Rob Font fight. When we watched the first Rob Font fight, I thought, hey, Rob Font's a good striker and he's got good footwork and maybe he can matador this guy. But it's like, dude, so very few guys can matador this guy. He doubles up on you in strike stats because he throws
footwork. Like that's what you need.
Exactly. It's hard to defend. I mean, he throws both of his hands with equal force and sometimes not at the same time, but almost at the same time. Like the right hand comes and as you're trying to defend yourself, the left hand comes over top. Like, again, you made a perfect point. If you try to go left, he cuts you off with hooks. You try to go right, he cuts you off with hooks. You stand there, you're fucked.
You're getting hammered with hooks.
Yeah, it's a very difficult way to fight. So when you look at well, okay, who are the guys that were effective against him? Well, TJ Dillashaw. Well, he just moves on such a unique level.
Yeah.
Well, Corey Sandhagen. Well, that's funny enough because Corey Sandhagen went to go train with TJ Dillashaw and has a lot of similarities to TJ Dillashaw. Rob Font. Got good footwork, but not this kind of footwork. And my biggest takeaway from the first time they fought is that Rob Font just could not earn John Lineker's respect because he could not hurt him. No. And he's got power, but he could not hurt him. So what happened was he'd land 2 shots, but it wasn't 2 shots, stay the fuck off me. It was 2 shots and this guy just keeps coming. And Lineker takes him down and Lineker bulldogs him. And when you look at their progression since then, Font's done some good, but he's fought guys like Matt Schnell. Like it's hard to now go to Lineker. He's excited for this fight. He wanted this fight. And he thinks it's going to be a completely different outcome. But I think it's going to play out very similar to the first fight. Both guys are kind of the same guy. And John Lineker's style, like very difficult to deal with. Rob Font doesn't have the wrestling to all of a sudden mix that. And I get it's going to be, okay, intercept this guy coming in, counter punch off this guy, fight off your back foot. He's not great at that, A. And B, it's just such a difficult task to deal with. So yeah, John Lineker, 8,900. It almost seems like he always gives you value when he fights. The 220, he's won this fight already. I would say he's on a good little streak here, but you look at his loss to Sandhagen, split decision, close fight. If he wins that, he's not fighting Rob Font. No. He's fighting one of these big boys in a title contender match. This division's looking hot right now. And hey, can Aljamain take him down? Can Aljamain play Matador? Aljamain actually moves pretty good.
Aljamain's not going to gain that respect, I tell you that much.
Yeah.
But he may be able to Matador.
But those
he
are the
showed
guys.
a good Matador game against Pedro.
Yeah. But and those are the guys.
That's the style that'll work. But Lineker is not going to be afraid of any strike, and that's why I think it comes down to it for Font is like TJ Dillashaw broke John Lineker's jaw.
They didn't
and
even
they still
look
went
hurt.
to decision.
Yeah, I know.
They still went to decision.
I know.
The guy just can take. It's a legendary chin that he has, and maybe one day that fails him, but I don't think that will be against Rob Font this coming weekend.
Yeah, and you would almost get the impression it's going to be something crazy. But who knows? The chin's a crazy thing. Like, you could take a lot of damage and one day one puts you out. But yeah. And Font has power, but I think this one plays out the same way. When you talk about the top guys of the division, he just fought Corey Sandhagen. And those other guys, they're looking at it like, oh, thank God Lineker lost. Now I have a good excuse for why I don't have to fight him. It's the guys like Rob Font that if they want to get into that elite talk, they got to fight him. Mm-hmm. And so Rob Font's stepping up, all the respect in the world, but yeah, John Lineker, you have to have a special style to beat him, and I don't see it out of Font. So the 8,900, I think that's totally playable. 220, I don't mind it, actually. I would probably have some shares in that. The last time it's like, the thing with Lineker is either he bombs you and you can survive and you can make a decision, or he just touches you with the right punches. Sometimes you fold, and he's got a nasty guillotine choke on him. So I'm not feeling the inside the distance, outside the distance, like him get a finish or not. But for the 8,900, even if he doesn't get a finish, he should still get his value. And if he does get the finish, perfect.
Brian Barberena is 9,200 and minus 280 favorite, taking on Randy Brown, who's 7,000 and plus 240. Bam Bam, kind of becoming a bit of a fan favorite. It was a pretty nasty amount of damage that he took against Vicente Luque in his last time out. And
shit'll change him,
This is another guy who has a very, very impressive chin. Maybe that would affect him against certain opponents, but I don't see Randy Brown. Randy Brown's is super, super long. I don't see any sort of shred of power that would worry me for Barberena being able to kind of march him forward and kind of make this the dogfight that he wants. Bam Bam coming out of that MMA lab. They're just scrappy guys in general. He's pretty well versed in everything. I don't really see much that Randy Brown has to offer him. The question is whether you pay up here and pay for Barberena, who in that loss to Vicente Luque scored, like, the optimal lineup had Luque and Barberena. Barberena scored 94 points, I believe.
Dude, I know
he massive underdog in that spot, and that just went to like full blown war mode.
Yeah. Okay. So, and he ends up getting finished in the third round, but after the second, and I've got lots of shares of Vicente Luque, I'm shitting my pants, dude. Mm-hmm. This guy does not fuck around. The same version of that Brian Barberena shows up here all day. But you got to wonder, like, does that change a man? Because that
luckily he's taking on an opponent that I don't think that I'm not as worried about what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, no, fair.
Like, he's not taking on some sort of vicious power puncher this time out.
Fair. And as long as Brian Barberena doesn't say, you know what? I don't want to get hit in the head all that much. I take a lot of damage. I'm just going to play on the outside. As long as he doesn't do that, yeah, for sure. Where's the thing with Brian Barberena is that we all love getting him for dog money, right? That's the kind of fighter that he is. So when he got announced at minus 280 here, yeah, a little part of me was like, should I try to fade him? He's known as being the underdog. It's not like he's spectacular by no means. He's coming off a tremendous beating. And Randy Brown poses threats for guys in that he's super long, he's super rangy, he's a little quicker than Brian Barberena, but it's that X factor, which is Brian Barberena is willing to go into the fire. And then when you look at Randy Brown and you do your tape study on him, like, the fire is where this guy gets burned. His losses in the UFC, Mike Graves, a guy that he has a good first round against Graves. Second round, Graves is like, all right, time to make this dirty. Takes him down, grinds him up. He's able to get the submission. His fight with Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad is a grinder. Let's not make no mistake about that. A guy that's willing to go to war with you, step in the pocket, take your shot to give a shot. Bilal Muhammad grinds him down, beats him up. The Mickey Gall fight. Mickey Gall's fucking terrible. And Randy Brown's in what resembles us to be a pretty close fucking fight with Mickey Gall. If Mickey Gall doesn't gas out in the third round, that might be 1-1. I don't know. Terrible fight. But he beats Mickey Gall. Okay. And then Nico Price. Are we talking about grinders right now? Because Nico Price fights in that exact same category. Price knocks him out from his own fucking back with some hammer fists. Now you give him a little bit of a layoff, and he's coming back against Bryan Barberena. Like, this is what Bryan Barberena does. Even if this guy manages to stay on the outside for that first round and touch Bryan Barberena up, at some point he's going to get in there. At some point he's going to dirty box him up.
Be like, this is I don't feel a threat from any of this.
No, I just take all of his
I just
shots.
ate all of Vicente Luque's shots for all of these rounds. Like,
and he's got shockingly good takedown defense, and he's got a good ability of getting back
he's an
up.
MMA lab guy. They're good at
he
everything.
He just keeps going, man. He takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And it's not that there's plenty of guys out there that will take that and turn it against you. But yeah, I don't know that Randy Brown's one of them. And I think if you're the UFC, we're talking about greasy theories, and we're talking about they're trying to market guys like Bryan Barberena. Give him 6 fights a year. He couldn't handle it like Lineker. Lineker comes out unscathed. This guy doesn't. These are the kind of guys you want to watch. Randy Brown, it's not that there's anything against Randy Brown, but like, you can't really market this guy. He's going to win as many as he loses. The skill's not really there. We tried to give this guy a shot. He beat Mickey Gall. He was on our Dana White's looking for a fight. We tried to do something there. There's nothing there. He's a limited opponent. Let's build back Bryan Barberena. And you know what you said at the top of the show? You're like, the top 3 fights on this card are really good. What you actually meant to say is the top 2 fights are pretty good, and we get some Bryan Barberena, which is a good time, right? It has nothing to do with Randy Brown. So on the matchmaking perspective here, it seems like it's Barberena. 280, for whatever reason, the gut feeling says don't do it. It's a steep price. The $9,200, he's just going to keep on coming and score some points. But not to the same extent. But remember when I was talking about that Tanya Evinger fight, her last one at Lena Landsberg? I'm like, on paper, where is Tanya going to lose this fight? But you get a bad feeling about it that's like, here's a plodding, flat-footed, unathletic individual who's a big favorite. And that's what you see here. And that's why part of me said maybe I should fade him. But then looking at the tape study, I can't get behind Randy Brown, especially not in a matchup like this that strongly favors Bam Bam Barberena. So sign me up for that.
We have Andrea KGB Lee taking on Montana De La Rosa. KGB Lee is 8,700 minus 235 favorite. Montana De La Rosa is 7,500 and plus 195. What do you think here?
Here's another fight that I thought was a good fade situation, but then looking at the tape study, you get cold feet on it. So KGB Lee, very fan favorite, because she's good looking. She has a fun fight style. She had a lot of hype coming from Invicta. Crazy story about her husband being some Nazi who did some who did some prison
all the other
time.
Things that fell out after that.
Yeah.
Imagine.
And then she shows up in the Ashley Evans Smith fight, and people are like, okay, now you're going to take on a girl who's bigger than you, stronger than you, has the wrestling advantage, and everybody thinks she's weak in her wrestling department. That's the way to beat her. And she just like the whole thing happened with her husband. He's not in her corner for the first time in a long time. She's training in I'm going to mispronounce it. Shreveport, Louisiana. Shreveport. Yeah, there you go. Louisiana. Maybe no, don't fade it. This girl's got some legitimate skills there, but now she's going to get a lot of love. People saw she's got some skills, and that's exactly what I'm looking at. Minus 235 over Montana De La Rosa, who's got some skills. If you want to beat KGB Lee, I think you need some wrestling. You need some cardio that's going to check out. When you look at her 2 fights in the UFC, Veronica Macedo is like a Taekwondo specialist, not really known for her grappling.
And
it's fucking tiny, dude. And she gives her all she can handle. She lands great shot standing. She lands a really nice takedown, actually, clean takedown. But she's just too small, Lee's able to sweep and get back up, and for the most part is able to just clinch her up. But she looks really fatigued. She looks lethargic. Not a great performance. When she fights Ashley Evans Smith, looks way better. But dude, Evans Smith's coming down from 35. Should have stayed at 35. Way too slow at 125. Like, not a factor whatsoever. Still completes 2 takedowns on KGB Lee, but on 10 attempts, and a lot of them were just really sloppy altogether. So when I look at Montana De La Rosa, here's a girl I believe she's a BJJ black belt. She wrestled collegiately. Her husband's a BJJ black belt, Mark De La Rosa. She's got the skill to go out there, complete takedowns, take this girl's back and submit her. We look at her locks to Roxanne Modafferi back in the day, just exposed on the ground. Sometimes it happens. But then in looking at Montana De La Rosa's 3 fights in the UFC, not so much her career before that, because I think it's like, what could she do against this caliber? She's not that strong, Like, her takedowns are largely get into the clinch and try to muscle your opponent to the ground.
She's going to
and
be
that's what
losing
Lee
that
does
battle
all day.
against Lee.
Lee's strong in the clinch. She's got a great tie clinch. She will bomb you with knees to the body, bomb you with knees to the head. So if she's unable to get the takedown, What's the stand-up going to look like? Her stand-up is fucking abysmal. She got a decent jab and a decent inside kick, but it's few and far between, not a whole lot of power. Lee's got power, and she throws a lot, but she's a little too aggressive. If she makes a mistake, Montana De La Rosa can capitalize, get her to the ground, maybe take a back take. We got something brewing here, but I don't trust the wrestling enough. Like, even though she has a wrestling base, the wrestling looks not so great, and she's able to get an armbar in her debut, and she's able to get the rear naked choke in her second fight, or fight with Ostovich. Sorry, you see glimpses of some striking that she's working on, but it's not enough. So I would love to fade Lee, and I'm waiting to fade Lee, but this might not be the opportunity.
It's dog or pass, in my opinion.
Well, if that's the case,
I'm not laying minus 235
it's a good
on
price.
Andrea Lee.
No, yeah, that's the thing, is I want to fade her. I just don't know that this is the spot.
As you like to always say, somebody on this card is shitting in the apple pie.
It's going to happen.
And there's a path to victory for Montana De La Rosa. Maybe her wrestling is that much better than Andrea Lee, and we just haven't really quite seen it yet.
Well, here's the thing that I want to know is that Montana De La Rosa, we haven't seen her like push, and get tired, right? And the cardio could be a big thing, because even if her wrestling's not that good in the first round, get this girl tired. Just keep shooting. You look at Ashley Evans-Smith. She goes 2 for 10, but she had to shoot the 10 takedowns. And actually, she gets a takedown right at the end of the third round as well. It's like the takedown is there. And if she does get her to the ground, she might be able to hold her there, maybe snatch up a submission. But you're playing on, this could be maybe a live bet situation if you think that Lee's starting to get tired. It's just she'll have to push a pace. And when you look at her fights in the UFC, she's not a grinder, Paul. She's not a Tatiana Suarez on your ass. She's a stay on the outside, low kick, jab, low kick, jab. You come forward, maybe dip down, maybe try to clinch up, maybe try a trip. It's not enough. So again, I hate to take all the favorites. They're all big favorites. And I can make a better point for Montana De La Rosa than I can for Randy Brown and Rob Font. Not so much Korean Zombie, but for those guys. But the 7,500, it would be, to me, it'd be viewed as a pun play.
We've got Kevin Holland taking on Alessio Di Chirico. Kevin Holland, 8,800 and minus 235 favorite. Di Chirico, 7,400 and plus 195. Italian wrestling, eh? I know that Di Chirico isn't technically a wrestler. But like Kevin, that should be his mentality coming into this fight Kevin, like you watched that Gerald Meerschaert fight I was watching just before he came in. It's just like he has actually no clue. Like he has no way of stopping a takedown. Now Meerschaert's more experienced guy, probably has a better setup, probably has a better takedown than Di Chirico. Di Chirico was able to take down Julian Marquez in that fight. His technique didn't look too bad. Like I think it's enough to take down Kevin Holland. The thing about Kevin Holland fights for DraftKings purposes is that they're always chaos. So like you should get in on this fight on DraftKings because it's gonna score high. It's just like because his takedown defense is so bad, just makes bad mistakes, tons of crazy scrambles. Like it is chaos. And that's, if you're playing DraftKings, you are in the business of finding the chaos. This fight has potential to be chaos. Di Chirico may not be a willing partner, but like most of his fights, he's not exactly a big-time scorer or whatever, but Kevin Holland kind of fights a style that like you're going to have to make some moves somewhere. The problem is just like Di Chirico is not exactly like a proper, like he doesn't have a pedigree of any sort.
No,
from a wrestling
he's a prototypical fighter. He's just well-rounded.
He's able to do a bunch of different things. I'd love to see him come at, like, from a DraftKings perspective, 7,400. We've been talking about a bunch of favorites along this card. Di Chirico is a guy that you naturally kind of land on because, hey, he's 7,400. He's taking on Kevin Holland. All of Kevin Holland's fights end up scoring really, really high. I just don't know that Di Chirico, when he gets the takedown, like, is his grappling that much better? Because Kevin Holland does have some sneaky submission skills to a degree, and he was able to get out of submission attempts from Gerald Meerschaert, who I would wager has much better grappling than Alessio Di Chirico. There's so many curveballs. He survived
the Thiago Santos ground and pound. It's very difficult, especially the way he was just mostly on his back that entire fight.
100%. So, God, I want to have. I won't be betting Di Chirico, but the question becomes whether I play him on DraftKings at 7,400 or not. Maybe you can help me here and Or maybe confuse me more by saying, oh, I think Kevin Holland absolutely starches this guy.
Yeah, no, I took the big favorites in the first 4, so I didn't want to puss out of this one. CHIRICO's got a fucking shot for sure. Yeah. And he's a big ass underdog, man. Plus 195. It's not even so much what can CHIRICO do. It's like Kevin Holland fights the type of style where middling guys with some type of resemblance of a ground game will be able to take advantage. And this is a situation here. CHIRICO, again, yeah, he's not a wrestler per nature. He's not a striker per nature, but he trains with a great team. He's always getting better. He's a young guy. And I just think he's making those slight improvements. When you look at his run in the UFC, Bojan Velikovic, better grappler than Kevin Holland, by the way. He's able to get 2 takedowns on him, outstrikes him, gets robbed in a decision. Gareth McClellan sucks, but he got 2 takedowns on him. Oluwale Bangbase, the world's worst first round, by the way, and then knocks him out with a knee. Scores a takedown in that fight, but let's not talk about it. And then that fight with Julian Marquez, 4 takedowns. So this guy's attempting takedowns on all of his fights. And that's the thing with a prototypical fighter. He's not going to go out there with the game plan to just strike or just wrestle. He's going to strike a little bit, and he's going to wrestle a little bit. But the path to victory here is to wrestle. I mean, Gerald Mearshart is a savvy veteran, but a guy that's not known for his wrestling and a guy that's not particularly all that strong. 6 takedowns on Kevin Holland. And I don't want to call it, you could call it exhaustion. You could call it poor ring IQ. You could call it Kevin Holland's actually got decent ground game. But like Mearshart makes a lot of boneheaded fucking decisions in that fight when he's got top control. And it's like, man, settle this guy down. I feel like he got dragged into this is a crazy fight and just went with it. There's a ton of transitions. There's a ton of grappling. There's some sloppy striking. There's some sloppy wrestling. It's a sloppy fight, a fun fight, but a sloppy fight. CHIRICO doesn't fight like that. He's a lot smarter. He's got better ring IQ. He's going to try to take the fight into the areas that he has it. Oluwale Bangbase, that guy's a one-dimensional power puncher for potentially a round. So everybody's booing CHIRICO. This is so boring. Not a bad game plan. I'm going to stay on the outside. I'm going to let this guy blow his load a little bit. I'm not going to do a whole lot. Take him in the second round and surprise him in the second round. Again, I'm looking at dogs that have a shot. This is a dog with a shot for $7,400 if he goes to his wrestling particularly, and Kevin Holland's the guy that's moving, forcing him to shoot more takedowns. Kevin Holland gets back up. He's going to have to do it again. Maybe he's going to have some ground transitions.
5 takedowns, that's 25 points right off the hop.
Yes, and Kevin Holland, one thing with Kevin Holland is that his takedown defense is not very good, but he's so fucking tall that's an issue. It's an issue when you're on the ground because it's easy to pass the guard on guys. Yeah, if he just stays in a classical guard, sure. But if you just move to half guard on him, you're going to get side control. From side control, I don't recommend taking the mount because he's probably just going to buck. But again, you can style on this guy a little bit. And the takedowns, they come a little bit easier because he's tall. He's also got a really quirky style where he hits you with shots you don't see coming, but he doesn't put a whole lot of power into those shots. They're just kind of sneaky shots. He's a squirrely fighter, but I don't see a ton of power out of him. So I'm not super worried about CHIRICO getting caught somewhere on the inside. I just need him to push him up against the cage, hold him up against the cage, and peel him on the ground. If this is money line, and it's a decent money line here, make this a boring fight. It could be this could be a very boring fight. Make it a boring fight. I don't really care. Hold him up against the cage, get takedowns near the end of the round, you're going to win. DK, I don't want to see him do that. But for $7,400, just get me my 4 or 5 takedowns, get me some ground transitions, and a little bit of ground and pound, I'll take it. Because a lot of people are going to take Kevin Holland. Not a lot of people, but he's $8,800, so he'd be one of the more expensive guys is what I'm saying. I don't know that it'll have high ownership. But if you can fade a guy like that and he loses, you'd be sitting good.
We got Ashley Yoder taking on Sayuri Kondo. Ashley Yoder, 8,200 minus 120 favorite. Sayuri Kondo is 8,000 and plus 100. You got any hot takes here?
Yeah, well, this is as the line would. Yeah,
I have no idea who wins this
As
fight.
the line would suggest, this one's going to be a really close one. It just kind of depends what you prefer. Do you prefer striker? Do you prefer grappler? And a lot of. Yeah, but you have to take every fight seriously on the odd chance that it's the one.
Do I? Do I have to take every fight seriously? This is one that I mean, if I have something else, I have to. If I have to run out to the store, grab some things, this may be the spot. And like this line hasn't moved all week. Just like I don't think there's a soul out there making a bet on this fight. Like I don't. Why? Like, who has a hot take on this? Do you?
If this fight was on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, where there's only 3 other fights on the card. Last night, normally there's 5. People would be all over it. There's nothing else on the card, so you're forced to look at it. But when you have a 12-fight offering, maybe it passes by the wayside. Again, though, you have a classic style matchup here versus striker versus grappler. And if you don't mind Ashley Yoder, someone who meddled I don't think she won gold, but has medaled at, decent IBJJF tournaments for pure Nogi Jiu-Jitsu. Used to train with Dan Henderson's team out of Temecula, former Team Quest. Decent wrestling, decent grappling. Maybe she goes out there and takes down the Japanese kickboxer. How many times have we seen Japanese kickboxers come in and struggle? Now, Kondo's issue is that she's undersized. She doesn't really deal with like the power, like bigger, stronger fighters. When you look at her last 2 losses in the UFC, you get the impression that maybe she's just a little undersized and maybe lacks that big power to get the finish. Against Yoder, that's a problem because she can take a punch. All of her losses are by decision. She's fought in, tough competitors like Mackenzie Dern. She's given an okay account of herself. Even though she's a little bit older, I do see some progression out of her. And I was a Kondo guy, but truthfully, like what Japanese fighter is having anything remotely near success in 2019 at a high level? It's just not happening. The game's passing them by largely because of the grappling, largely because of the strength advantages. And Ashley Yoder's going to have that. So, yeah, it's only Wednesday? I'm going to definitely look at some more tape on this, but my early instinct would be Ashley Yoder. I'm going to tell you to pass just because I'm not going to, in clear conscience, give you a fucking like Yoder. But
lock it in.
Yeah. But when you got like mid-level grappler versus mid-level striker, and it's not as if Kondo's a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. She had a kickboxing pedigree prior to signing with the UFC, didn't have a whole lot of fights, and then goes from there. Has not looked great. Yoder had no fights either, but she's on the Ultimate Fighter, comes out of the Ultimate Fighter. They gave her some tough fights. She does look to be making some improvements. That's why I would lean Yoder, at least for the time being.
We got Kevin Aguilar taking on Dan Ige. Aguilar is 8,400 minus 150 favorite. Ige 7,800 and plus 130. This is basically the same fight that Aguilar just came off of against Barzola. Ige may have a little bit better grappling. He may be able to stick to a game plan as opposed to Barzola, who really only started trying to go after takedowns like
Barzola's
when he was already down. Like,
talented.
That's the problem with Barzola, is that like his wrestling is actually, he's got powerhouse wrestling, but when he was trying to get in there, like Aguilar stuffed him. Yeah, stuffed him. That one was painful for me. Because I had Barzola, because Barzola is just like a DK beauty, because like he's got like 8 takedowns, 9 takedowns. Aguilar was just stuffing that guy like he was a Thanksgiving turkey, and he was able to, like, he was staying at range, staying out of danger. Like, he had a decent jab that was landing at will.
He's got a nice jab.
Is when he started eating a bunch of left hooks later in the fight. I think Ige is a more well-rounded guy with a better propensity to stick to a game plan. And I think he's making a lot of improvements training with, he seems to be on the road with like Khabib and the boys a whole bunch.
Yeah, we'll get to the greasy theories, but go on.
But it's hard for me to pick against, I'm not sure I'm going to bet this one. And Aguilar scored like 59 points in that win over Barzola, because there's a lot of jabs. Jabs don't score on DraftKings, so he's probably going to utilize the same type of game plan. I'm going to pick Aguilar here, but it's not a fight that I'm targeting on DraftKings, to be perfectly honest. The inside the distance props on both of these guys are pretty wide. Like, I think it's going to be a somewhat popular fight on DraftKings, and the numbers don't really suggest why it should be. Unless you think Ige is going to be able to close that distance, get the takedowns, and dominate. It would be Ige on a DraftKings perspective, a 7,800 underdog would be like the play that I would go to. But Aguilar showed me against Barzola that he's not really a DK kind of play.
No, I hear you. I think Kevin Aguilar is everybody's darling. The guy's just got a really fun fight style. He's got a badass nickname, the Angel of Death, which he stole from Demasio Page, but that's a story for another time. People really like him. Good LFA career, comes to the UFC 2-0. The fight with Rick Glenn too, same thing. It's like Rick Glenn's a decent prospect. I don't know if I call him a prospect. He's got 30 fights, but a couple good wins under his belt. And now I'm seeing a lot of love from him online. People seem to be getting behind him. He's got the keys to win here, but it all goes back to that takedown defense. Stuffing Barzola takedowns, very impressive, but that's Kevin Aguilar's typical weakness, is his takedown defense. No doubt he's working on it, but the path to victory to beating this guy is don't stand again to a fight with him. Don't brawl with him. And also he's got a decent ground game. If you do take him down and he's off his back, he can defend himself, eventually get back up, and then slug it out with you. When I look at Dan Ige, he's looked very good in his last 3 3 fights. But you go back to that fight with Julio Arce, and that's when I don't get my takedowns and I start to get touched up. I don't like it. He's short. Him staying on the outside is bad news. If he comes to the inside and doesn't get his way, there's a problem. But looking after that Julio Arce fight, that's where he's had his way. He closes that distance. He gets a hold of you, peels you to the ground. Prior to him getting that shot in the UFC, he was a little known, I want to say he's Hawaiian. He's a little known Hawaiian wrestler with the BJJ Brown belt that just moves to Las Vegas and just gets going. But since then, he has really gotten going. Greasy theory of the week. Oh, we got club sirens. So he moves to Las Vegas. He gets with Extreme Couture. All the guys at Extreme Couture get with Ray Sefo and get with Ali Abdelaziz. Ali Abdelaziz, he takes a shining to one Dan Ige. Ali, he's got 2 personal assistants that work in Las Vegas with him. They do errands with him, all that. The one guy is the guy from last night, Soriano, that one on Contender Series. Punane Soriano. He trains in Las Vegas. He's a 2-time Hawaiian State Wrestling Champion from Hawaii, trains in Vegas, one of Abdelaziz's guys. The other guy is Dan Ige. Dan Ige is getting the royal treatment. He's training with the best guys in the world. Like you said, he's part of the crew. He's with Khabib all the time. And he's reaping the benefits. His last 3 fights, he's looked really fucking good. Now here's the greasy theory part, because that's just online. But Mike Russell he's an actual journalist, let's put it that way, but he's actually out there and doing the research and writing stuff. But he's got a crazy fascination with one Ali Abdelaziz. I think it goes back to World Series of Fighting 1, Kurt Southern, also Tyson Steele ended up beating Gregor Gracie. Another story for another time. But he's got a but he's after Ali. So he had messaged out that he had like some paper trail that was EPO and other steroids that were being sent to Ali Abdelaziz, and the name signed on the package to pick it up at the clinic was Dan Ige. So he tweets all about it and then deletes everything. So Ige looks awesome. He's training with a tremendous team, and I don't even think he's on roids. I'm just saying, the guy is in a situation to succeed. He's with a fantastic team, with fantastic management. All of his guys are winning right now, and he's a dog money against Kevin Aguilar, who has struggles typically in the grappling department. So yes, Kevin can win this fight, and yes, Kevin should be a slight favorite, but I've only got 1 dog to this point, and that's CHIRICO. This will be my second one. I'll take Dan Ige.
We got Luis Pena taking on Matt Wiman. Luis Pena, 9,500 and a -380 favorite. Matt Wiman, 6,700 plus 315. Matt Wiman hasn't fought in 5 years. I thought he was retired.
Or dead.
Fully thought he was retired or dead. I hadn't seen the obituary, but I wouldn't have been surprised if someone had presented to me. I'm glad that he's not and that he's fighting on this card. Going back, I watched his Isaac Valley flag fight, which was a fun fight. Really exhausting fight. A lot of cage work. The guys were scrambling, grinding. It was like, what was the one thing that really I took away from like rewatching that is I'm like, man, the game has changed a lot in 5 years. And I don't know what Matt Wiman has been up to. The guy doesn't really have too many social media things. I haven't seen any interviews with him. Maybe they are out there and I missed them, but I was like kind of searching around for that. Frankly, like I hate the fact that like Luis Pena is -380. The price on DraftKings, I'm going to avoid it just based on the fact that of how Luis Pena fights. I think, he's got 11-inch reach advantage in this fight. I think his game plan is going to be maintain range.
Tough to do against Matt Wiman if he fights the same way.
Keep at a distance and fight that type of style. Like he's got massive advantages in a lot of different things. I think it's like 78-inch reach to 67. And I'm picking Luis Pena. I mean, I struggle to see how Matt Wiman, maybe he's been training, maybe he's been improving, maybe he's completely resurrected his career. But it's really hard to have any faith in him coming in and being a better version of himself. Like he was kind of already on the way down as he was like, that was a tooth and nail scrap against Isaac Valley fight. You go through his record.
5 years ago.
You go through his record.
Yeah, no.
There is nobody that he has beaten that still, like basically hardly any of them even fight anymore, let alone none of them actually have UFC contracts.
That was my thing I was going to say. Normally we play this guy's been cut from the UFC. But with Matt Wiman, it's like, this guy's retired, dog. He's cut, he's fighting somewhere else.
Like none of these guys even fight anymore. It's been Like you go back watch that Isaac Valley flag
So-
fight, and it's just like this is 5-year-old
Yeah,
MMA.
yeah.
You watch Luis Pena versus Steve Ocho Peterson, and it's just like even these guys at this level of the game, it's just they're just so much. It's so much faster.
Yes,
there's so
yes.
many more different
Yes.
techniques and everything going on that like I just think Matt Wyman's playing a game of catch up that he's not going to be able to come away with victoriously.
Yeah, which is
not
which
that
is
I
why
love
he's a big dog.
Not that I
get it.
love Luis Pena by any stretch of the imagination. I would look to fade him in lots of situations at this type of number, but man, the guy hasn't fought in 5 years, and I have no idea what he's like. Maybe he shows up at the weigh-ins, and the guy's just looking nuked, and then it's a bit of a different start. Oh, he looks like he's been taking things seriously. I have no idea why he's on this card.
I'm surprised that he's under contract. Like I'm surprised the UFC
Mm-hmm.
at no point in the last 5 years was just like, listen, dude,
You haven't
like
fought.
we can't just keep sending you free swag once a year at the Fighter Summit meeting. Like I don't know what the hell's going on here. Also, like, is he still on the healthcare plan? Like, what's going on there? 5 years,
No idea.
pretty crazy. Yeah, there's question marks around him. Not even just question marks. Like the biggest, what the fuck has happened in the last 5 years? He left. He was 30, pretty much the prime point in an athlete's career. Now you come back. He pulled out a one fight due to injury
He's
in
supposed
like
to take on
2015.
Leonardo Santos in like 2015 or 16. Yeah.
Fight gets scrapped, and now he's been sitting. Now he comes back and he's 35. His style is a good style for Luis Pena. Like, it's a good style to deal with Luis Pena, but that was a style that you implemented 5 years ago.
Isaac Valley Flag was muscling him.
Right,
up
and I'm
going
to
to
say, the last little bit, it was starting to get like, oh man, the end is near. Then you'd see him not fight. He was one of those fighters that you thought, he's like, you know what? Matt Wyman got out on a win. Very few guys can say that. Uriah Faber could have said that had he not decided to come back to fight Ricky Simon. But most of the time, these guys, they lose, and then that's kind of the end of the road. In this case, it's like you got that win. So I didn't think there was the desire to come back, but you're an athlete. You're only 35 at the end of the day. Still young for a human, not an athlete, but for a human. Maybe you get the urge, and this is a veteran of tough 5 versus a veteran of tough 27. To put things into perspective for you. So I think Pena, I don't know. I want to say he catches Matt Wyman. Matt Wyman, 3 fights back. I got it here. 2 fights back. Yeah, the TJ Grant fight. It's a first round blast out with elbows, but it's like a dirty knockout. And I'm not saying Pena's good in the clinch and he's going to be able to land those same elbows, or I think Matt Wyman's chinny, but like you said, man, the game progresses. And all of a sudden, you get hard sparring in the gym, but you haven't had an actual fight in 5 years, and you're dealing with Luis Pena. The issue why I don't want to jump full on Luis Pena is even though there's the 5-year layoff, it presents a lot of question marks, and those are usually dangerous to go on. But Pena is a guy that is ginormous and decides for his last fight, I'm going to go to 145. Dude, impossible. I don't know why you're doing it. Not worth it. He goes down to fight Ocho Peterson at 45 and misses weight, by the way. Comes in at, I think, 47 and a half.
He's
and
just
then
way too big.
He's way too big, but why even consider that?
Yeah.
And then why go and beat up poor Steven Peterson, who gave an all right account of himself, but is just way too small to deal with Steve. Like, come on here. And then Luis Pena bails on it and then comes back to 155. So the fact that he tried to dip 55, I think, is when he lost that fight to Trezano and he got out grappled and he got tired. I think he realized dealing with these bigger guys who are grapplers, it's going to be an issue. Yes, I'm tall, but I don't maintain great range. So if they close the distance on me, it's easy for them to get underhooks. It's easy for them to control me up against the fence. And if I do get taken down, it's going to take a lot of energy to get back up. So he tries to go to 145 where it's going to be harder to take him down because he's just going to be so big. Bails on that, comes back to 155. But who's a grinder? Who's a guy that's going to be able to close the distance and get a hold of you and peel you to the ground? Matt Wyman in 2013. So I'm bailing on it. I'm the DK 9500, even though you could whiff out a quick finish, I want no part of it.
No.
The 380, like I could put it on some type of mid-level parlays just to add some value, but like don't be chasing big numbers. He should win. I don't see why he shouldn't win. But there's just so many questions that I can't answer.
Exactly.
Because there's just a huge gap here.
We have J.R. Zinho Rozenstruik taking on Alan Crowder. Say it right, Frenchie. Rozenstruik is 9,000 on DraftKings and a minus 225 favorite. Alan Crowder is 7,200 and plus 185. Cashed in on Rozenstruik against Big Baby Albini. Last time out. But like,
goddamn Albini.
Rozenstruik is not great at defending takedowns. He's able to get back up. He's
strike.
got some athleticism, and the guy has that death touch when he lands on you. I think he rolls through Alan Crowder here. We get another victory here. It's like Alan Crowder had Greg Hardy on the ground, all the places that you would want him, a guy with zero experience, and he ended up getting the win by, egregious knee to the head on the ground.
Yeah, Hardy's like, I'm too tired. I'm out of here.
But like,
Crowder was pretty tired
Hardy
too.
was starting to come on, man.
I agree. Why'd you throw it? This guy's done.
Like Alan, I think Rozenstruik knocks him out. Alan Crowder may be able to. There may be a couple dicey moments early where Crowder gets in there, takes him down early, but I saw enough from Rozenstruik to think that he'll be able to at least defend against whatever submission attempts if he does get taken down and get back to his feet. When he does, I think he's gonna lay it onto Alan Crowder. 9,000 on DraftKings. Like if we get an early, it's not we need the first round knockout with him because he doesn't throw that much volume. So if he gets a second round, like last fight, he ended up getting 94 points, which is good, but it may not be the most ideal. And like, you're really chasing that knockout. Like we don't really know how much gas this guy has. We get into deep into round 3. I don't know how much Jairzinho, our boy here, has, but
yeah,
I like him to get the win against Crowder, but like, I don't think I would ever pick Crowder in a UFC level fight. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. You know, there's a couple train of thoughts here. One is that, Rozenstruik probably absolutely blasts him in the first round, and for $9,000, put him on your lineup. The other train of thought is shitty heavyweights. What does it really matter what the price is? Take the cheap guy, because you certainly have a chance. You got it last night, and a couple of people did. Plus 650 on this bum from the East Coast, 3-0, taking on some wrestling prospect. Why was that line so lopsided?
Yeah,
they were both really low level.
That was going back to like our old days. It's like they don't
take the dog in the middling heavyweight.
Middling heavyweights at like plus 500 and above. It's an auto bet. We used to talk about that a lot. They don't make the lines like that anymore for very good reason as to what happened last night. Is that because it's heavyweights, you're going to be a lot more variance. Man, this is more of a minus 225 or plus 185. Like, this is a little bit more of a reasonable set line, in my opinion.
Fair, but when you look at Crowder, right? Crowder's brought in, you want to talk about storylines. Dana and co are like, oh, fuck, we got to get this guy a UFC debut, and he needs to fight somebody who's abysmal, which is why they got Smoliakov the second time. Mm-hmm. And they end up with Crowder. They look at it, they analyze the style, and they say Crowder is going to stand there, he'll get hit, he'll crumple over, and it'll be a good win for Hardy. But he's got a little bit more than that. He takes a couple shots from Hardy. Hardy's touch of death. Hardy's touching guys and they're crumpling over. Crowder takes some shots. Crowder's got a little bit of wrestling. He takes down Hardy. Crowder's got a little bit of cardio. He's able to go 2 rounds. He's cooked by the end. But there's a little bit more variables there than most people thought, especially the UFC's part, because I think they wanted to get Crowder that win. And that's why no marketing of Crowder, still marketing Hardy, kind of blew up in our face. So we know that he's limited. But with Rozenstruik, this guy is very much a poor man's Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou, when he came to the UFC, when he gets taken down, he goes to a simple closed guard and just defense. That's it. They'll stand me up eventually. If they don't stand me up, there'll be a moment where I can get back up to my feet, but I'll probably get stood back up. When I get stood back up, I'm going to fuck this guy up because I only got to hit him up a couple times. And that's what this guy does. And that's Crowder's problem. Crowder does get a takedown. There's not enough. Rozenstruik will just hold on. When it's standing, he's a multiple-time kickboxing champion of Suriname, trained with Melvin Manhoff, a good kickboxer, an agile guy, 6'4", has a ton of power, and Albini is a better fighter than Crowder, let's be honest here. He gets taken down against Albini and is still okay and wins the fight. Only 31 years old, young
like
for a heavyweight.
At the end of round 1, you could see it's just like Rozenstruik's coming for this.
Exactly. It's like, you know what? Here's a big heavyweight I thought might get tired. And even his win against Ryzen
he was in all of the worst spots that he could have been in, and
Russian,
then he came back.
Yeah, undefeated Russian in Japan. Much better grappler than I. But it's like, when the areas of the fight I'm not good in, I'll just defend myself and keep it simple and get back to the areas that I'm good at and blast this guy. So I think Rozenstruik gets the win. I could totally see it again on punt play perspective. $7,200 on Crowder, he could win. If I'm playing a big GPP and it's like I got to save some money, I'm playing multiple lineups. Crowder could be on some of them, but a first round knockout is what we're looking for. And Rozenstruik looks like the kind of guy that could get you that first round knockout. If he doesn't get the first round knockout, he could still get your second round knockout. You would like the first round knockout because he's 9,000, but you'd still be happy with him.
It's true. We have Ariane Lipski, the Violence Queen, taking on Molly McCann. Lipski, 9,100 minus 290 favorite. McCann, 7,100 plus 245. What's your take here?
Someone, when I was passing by, they were telling me actually that you can't spell McCann without can. But I say that's wrong. I like this girl. This is sleeper pick. Could be one of the better fights on the card. I don't want to say fight of the night. There's some other good fights on here, but this will be a good fight because Molly McCann is a striker. Lipski is a striker. Neither of them want to grapple. They've struggled in the grappling department, and they don't have similar styles, but Molly McCann's super short. She likes to get in the pocket. She likes to box. Lipski's kind of a rangy Brazilian Muay Thai practitioner. This should be a fun fight, but I got to go Lipski. I mean, Lipski, she delivers a lot more damage. I think even though a KSW run versus that Cage Warriors run, like KSW is just chock full of people you do not want to meet in an alley. It's a tough run. Cage Warriors, she got the title, and I think that's where a lot of the love for Molly McCann comes from. Oh, she's a former Cage Warriors champion. She comes to the UFC, fights what? Jillian Robertson. And it's like, oh, she's going to roll through Jillian Robertson. I also bet her, by the way. I'm not making fun of anybody here. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, oh, man, she can't grapple whatsoever. Okay, take two. Let's give her somebody that also can't wrestle, and we'll just have a fun banger of a fight with Priscilla Cachoeira.
And honestly, she
lost the third round.
I was on
clean.
I was on McCann there, and thank God she managed to win. But it's like, if she was 30 seconds maybe. If that round's an extra minute long, like that eye was so banged up at the end of that fight. It's like you were getting so close to doctor stoppage.
Yeah. Here's my other
and
theory.
That was against ketchup eating.
My theory on that one is that referee, right? Either, maybe a bit of a greasy theory, but that referee either was an only child or only had brothers. Because if he had a sister, would have stopped that fight for sure. No fucking way I'm letting you go out there, sweetheart. Ain't happening. But it was like 30 seconds. This is going to be her first UFC win. She's up 2 rounds to none. But it's not just the eyes messed up. It's like she legitimately loses the third round. Looked a little tired. Looked hurt. She's way open to get hit, man. Like, not great defensive striking. Lipski should be able to just tag her up. Yeah. We were on Calderwood. I know I was. I think you were as well with Calderwood, being that Calderwood's versatile and has a wrestling game and might be able to draw on that. But McCann doesn't. And McCann doesn't want to make this a grappling fight. She wants one of those rugged, in-your-face brawls. And that should play towards Lipski. So the 9,100, I don't want any part of that. The 290, God, I wish it was a better price. But this is bad, stinky price to me. I got Lipski winning. I'm not in favor of the pricing. I'll let the other people handle that one.
We have Deron Winn taking on Eric Spicely. Deron Winn is 9,300 minus 290 favorite. Spicely, 6,900 and plus 245. Third opponent for Deron Winn, who's a protege of Daniel Cormier. This guy is a 3-time All-American in wrestling. He's a national champion in high school. He was like training with the Olympic team.
He almost qualified for the 2016 Olympics.
The guy's wrestling.
He's 5'5", but
excellent. He's 5'5". He fought his last one. His last fight was against Tom Lawler on that egregious
Golden Boy Promotions.
Golden Boy. What's his name? De La Hoya card there. De La Hoya with Chuck Liddell. The final death of Chuck Liddell, hopefully.
Hopefully the final.
But yeah, in that fight, the interesting thing was that round 1, 2, you saw that the guy's actually got some hands. He was throwing some spinning kicks. Like he's got that DC build. He's super small, especially at 205. It's like he looked so small. This is at 185. He's taking on Spicely. Spicely has jiu-jitsu, so I guess any sort of mentality of him winning would be like, all right, he's going to grab a neck. He's going to grab a limb. It's just like, well, the problem with Deron Winn is that you can't grab his neck because he doesn't have a neck. Like this guy Tom Lawler did grab him like a guillotine at one point, and then he just kind of like muscled his way out of it.
A guillotine won't work because of his ability of dealing with front headlocks. But a triangle, oh wait, no, he doesn't have a net. Try triangling a guy who's 5'5", and probably going to come into the fight at 200 pounds, maybe north of 200 pounds. It's very, very
This
different.
guy's a beast. He smashes spicely. That's really all I have to say about this. He's like, if there was a quote unquote lock, I should just whisper that, knocking on wood. He feels like the lock to me of anybody on this card.
Yeah,
I'm impressed by what I see on tape. He's obviously coming from a tremendous gym. Has all the right people around him. He's got the background of like elite wrestling. He only used that in round 3 against Tom Lawler, and he was able to secure the takedowns quite easily. The one issue, I guess, at like 9,300 is that maybe he goes, the only place that this opponent is his third different opponent change. The only place that Spicely can hurt me is if we go to the ground. So maybe he just goes, I'm just going to box this guy up for 3 rounds. And his, the amount of strikes that he was landing against Lawler on the feet were pretty low. I think he had 59 significant strikes through 3 rounds. So like that's not going to pay anything. But I like him to get the win, no doubt. It's just how he goes about it. I'm not entirely sure because his stand-up skills looked good enough that he could probably win this on the feet as well.
Yeah, you know what? I think he's got all the skills in the world. I think he wins the minus 290. I don't like it because he's got few, just inexperience, right? He's got so few professional fights. I'm going to play it, don't get me wrong. And the 9,300, I'm going to play that too. But what I'm getting at is there's always going to be some inadvertent risk when you got a guy that's very green. And you got to look no farther than Bellator's product. Bellator's got a ton of great wrestlers, but they bring these guys in when these guys are 0-0 and groom them from there, and they can win the cheap fights. But when you get to a decent level of competition, eventually they kind of fall through. One thing I really noticed, I'll go through this quick, is that Contender Series card from last night, your guy there, Yorgon was initially supposed to fight this guy named Jimmy Lawson on that card. Jimmy Lawson is an 0-0 collegiate wrestling champion that trains at the American Kickboxing Academy. He was going to take a fight on Titan FC and then win that, go 1-0, and then fight on Dana White's Contender Series, right? Loses the fight on Titan FC to a tune-up can bum. And then they're like, we can't put an 0-1 guy on Contender Series. So switched out for Meeks, who is a shittier wrestler. Mm-hmm. And guess what? This guy would have lost, and Meeks is the same way. It's like you buy in so much on the guy's a good wrestler. He's gonna win this fight. That maybe there's more to it than that. In Wynn's case, he's got some decent fights. He beat Tom Lawler. His boxing looks good. He's training with. It's not just he's a wrestler at AKA. DC has put a flag next to this guy. You don't see a guy with a reputation like Daniel Cormier.
DC's put his flag next to who? Habib? This guy?
Yeah.
Who else has he put his flag? Well, and obviously his buddy Kane, but like
and maybe like a Luke Rockwold. Yeah, who
like,
are all world champions.
That he's planting his flag. I don't even think he was. Who's the other guy? The Willis, Justin Willis. I don't even think he was really pumped.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't
really pumping that guy's
Big
tires.
Willis was just a sparring partner of his. And he says the same thing with even Blagoy Ivanov the other day when they're talking about, they're like, he's a training partner of yours. He says, oh, this guy hurt me in sparring one time. But he's not like, this is the dude, man. Watch out. This is the dude. With Darren, when you get the impression that's like, it's not just he was a great wrestler, it's that his style of wrestling, it translates very well to MMA. And then he's got the mentality that he wants to win. Short, yes. But because he's not a short striker, his style of being short, who the fuck
short
cares?
And stocky, that just kind of helps your wrestling anyway. Your hips are so much lower, you're able to get.
I'm going to get a hold of this guy. I'm going to peel him, and I'm going to thrash him. Now, the thing that's interesting is he fights Tom Lawler. That's the most notable fight of his career. But really, Tom Lawler had been spending all of his time pro wrestling and was now considered a pro wrestler. And then he smashes him up. Now he gets Spicely. He's coming in on 5 days' notice, and is also a fucking pro wrestler, dog. He actually got to try it with the WWE not that long ago. Didn't get the job, obviously, but like is all into pro wrestling. So Darren Wynn is going to beat guys that also do something on the side. Mm-hmm. Could a top contender spoil this guy right now? Yeah he's not ready for that, but he's ready for this. In fact, this was not the initial opponent. This is the guy that takes it on the 5 days. The reason why I'm all in on Darren Wynn here, even though it's $9,300, is like, how could he not finish this within 2 rounds? Probably finishes this within 1. This is Spicely, okay? Spicely loses to Andrew Sanchez on The Ultimate Fighter in 47 seconds into the first round. Then he loses his debut to Sam Alvey in the first round. He beats Thiago Santos in the first round. He beats Alicio Di Chirico in the first round. Then he loses to Antonio Carlos Jr. in the second round, loses to Gerald Mearshart in the second round, loses to Darren Stewart in the second round, cut, goes to the regional scene, both of his regional scene wins first round. He finishes you in one, or he gets finished in one or two at the most. He has no cardio, Paul. Yeah, he's got a tricky little submission game, and he can pull one over on you. But on a full fucking training camp, 8 weeks, he cannot fight more than 2 rounds. You look at his build, he's not in particularly good shape. He's not a particularly great athlete. He's a fighter, but he's only got about 1 round in him. Now you give him 5 days notice for this fight. He's got 1 round, and Spicely's a fighter. He's going to bring it to Darren. He's not going to fucking sit back. He's going to go after him. And when it blows up, he's going to tire. He's going to get TKO'd at the end of the first. If he makes it to the second, his submission game, yeah, it's gone after 1 round, unless he's on top. If he's on top, you got a problem. But take him down in the second round and pound him out. But I think Darren Wynn gets the finish. I think for 93, he could get it in the first round, so I'd be okay with that. Second round, I would need a lot of takedowns, and the problem is I don't think Spicely's going to get back up if he gets taken down.
No, I don't either. He'll probably just be happy, like...
But a TKO at
Spicely
455.
could just try to pull guard and hope for the best. Like,
I think Spicy will come in, throw some hand. Like you said, if Darren Wynn says this is the only place that he can fight me is on the ground, I'm going to box him up. I think he can knock him out. But if he just boxes him up in the first round and then takes him down and pounds him out, sure. But if he boxes him up for 330, takes him down, pounds him out for the last minute and finishes him late in the first round, that's best case scenario. Yeah. So I'm interested in what his ownership will be. I'd like to see a projection on it, just because on one hand, you got a debuting guy with not a whole lot of fights with a big price tag. The general person's probably going to want to avoid him. On the other hand, he's a highly touted prospect, getting the full support of guys like Daniel Cormier, who's fighting Eric Spicely on 5 days notice.
His flag on this guy.
Yeah. And he's got a tough veteran opponent who has a bit of a name, so people might be a little hesitant, but it's like, it's the perfect matchup. It really is. If Wynn's got cardio problems, which is the only thing that might plague this guy that we don't know, 5'5", dealing with those big guys, maybe he gets tired.
Coming down to 185 too for like...
it should help. Yeah, well, there's the other thing. Spicely's a fucking big boy too, man. I bet you that weight cut's gonna hurt him. Yeah. And he's got bad cardio to boot on top of all of that. So tough situation. I do like Spicely. He's a tough guy, good guy, but this is all Win.
And finally, we have Andre Ewell taking on Anderson dos Santos. Andre Ewell is 8,300 and plus 105, so he's the underdog, even though he's the favorite. On DraftKings, on ADS, is 7,900 and minus 125. I think they opened this line. Now, it's obviously like super, super short limits and stuff, but when they opened up this line, it was like Ewell was like minus 300. You go on bestfightodds.com and you will see. He's like, and then obviously it was smashed immediately. I think it's kind of over-adjusted at this point. Watching Anderson dos Santos against Nadir Armani, like, I didn't see anything special from this guy. Ewell, he's at least really good. He's long. He's pretty quick on his feet. He's got a wide
huge
stance,
reach,
and he can get in and out super fast. Like, ADS just looks like your prototypical, Brazilian Muay Thai guy. Apparently he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's what they said on the broadcast.
Ricky Simon.
Yeah, but like, I don't know.
Back in his Titan days.
I don't see much from this guy. I will be picking Ewell. Maybe just continue to wait because it seems like all the steam is coming in on the other side, though, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't made a bet on it yet. I'll wait on a price. I don't really like Ewell as a DraftKings play, 8,300. I just think if he wins, probably something like a decision where he scores 70 points, that type of thing. These are not the types of fights that get me super excited. But I'm not understanding all the Anderson dos Santos love that I see throughout the community right now. I just don't see it.
Yeah. Anderson dos Santos. Well, again, see, this is going back to kind of like that Ashley Yoder versus Yuri Kondo fight. This is a close matchup, and what you're getting is a striker versus grappler. Ewell he's fucking long, man. And when you look at him versus Renan Barão's a short guy who decides to not try to pressure this guy whatsoever, stays on the outside, and doesn't try to grapple him. You don't want to stand on the outside of this guy's punches. He's just too rangy. His next fight with Kelleher, it's like, once you close that distance, he's kind of doesn't got nothing to offer you. So he wants to keep this fight at distance and strike. He doesn't want to be grappled. Anderson Dos Santos is the same thing. His striking, like he gets hit a lot. And his chin, not that good. But if he gets a hold of you and he does get you to the ground, he is a BJJ black belt. And he's got some good submission wins under his record. And if he gets a hold of Andre Ewell, it's going to be a bit of a problem. But his chin, like, I'm not big on it, man.
He got battered against. Nadir Rahmani was just landing everything. Everything.
That's the thing, is that like some guys, it looks like their hands are up and then you throw punches at them and it just hits them anyways. Yeah. It's like, I don't know what's going on. My biggest thing is that I lost money. I had Ricky Simon over him, Titan FC. It's his debut. He's coming off a loss. He's short notice. But he's fucking guy's a black belt. And he ended up submitting Ricky Simon. Blows up in my face. But I'll never forget it. He fought Andrew Whitney in his second Titan fight. Andrew Whitney is Tisha Torres' ex-boyfriend for American Top Team. Now I know what you're thinking. Tisha Torres is a lesbian. Yeah, because of fucking Andrew Whitney. He was the last guy she was with before she converted to the other team. So Andrew Whitney knocks him out, dog. And then beyond that, Saeed submits him. Victor Henry makes him quit after 2. And then Nadir Rahmani beats him pillar to post. He's in short notice on that fight. He probably shouldn't have been in the UFC. They needed a guy. They brought in Dos Santos. Now they owe him a second fight. Let's give him to Ewell. Someone's going to present themselves and step up to the next level. I get the feeling it's Ewell, but I pick grapplers over strikers for the most part. My reasoning for Yoder over Kondo is, hey, 2 mid-pack fighters, I'm going to go with that grappling advantage. But Yoder's got more wrestling, Yoder's got more tenacity, and Yoder's got better top pressure. Whereas I think Anderson Dos Santos, if he doesn't get the takedown, he'll get battered post to post, which is something Yoder shouldn't happen to her anyways. So the last thing here is that there's a metaphorical gun to your head that he's $7,900 and he's the favorite. He's cheap. He's less than $8,000. Yeah, he's the cheaper option.
Everyone will be on that play because those guys end up being, like, if we think about it, we go back.
People are they feel forced into it.
Versus Hector Aldana was a very similar situation.
Yeah.
We went the other way.
And it worked.
Everyone zigs and we zagged. Worked at that time. But you also...
I'm going Ewell. It's also hard to say that...
I'm going Ewell.
Yeah, it's hard to say Anderson Dos Santos is going to be able to capitalize on those deficiencies. Sorry, I fucked up. It wasn't Keller. It was Nathaniel Wood. The thing is, Nathaniel Wood's fast, and he's agile, and he's young, and his wrestling, it's British wrestling, but it's like he's on you. He's a much better athlete than 33-year-old Dos Santos. So whereas I think Ewell had trouble in the grappling with Nathaniel Wood, probably won't have as many troubles. Stay at range, bop this guy up, and...
Exactly.
It's not... oh man, he's going to get taken down, tire him out, hurt that leg. That's all stuff that slows you down. The number one thing that prevents you from getting taken down, fucking rock this guy. Once you rock a guy, they're not thinking clearly. They're not reacting clearly. The reaction time just ain't there anymore. Maybe you can pull that off. So that's what I'll go. I'm going to go Moicano, Lineker, Brian Barbarena, Andrea Lee. First dog will be CHIRICO. Yoder, that's pretty much an even fight. Danny Gay will be my second dog. Luis Pena, price is kind of whack. Rozenstruik, another favorite. Lipski is a big favorite. Darren Wynn's a big favorite. And Ewell's a slight dog, so it looks like I got 3 dogs in a close to even fight. But
you may be able to wait on that Ewell line even more. Like all the steam, all week. You go on like the Bet MMA tips sites. Like most people are all on Anderson Dos Santos. Like you may be able to wait and even catch like a plus 120 or something like that.
My personal opinion in spots like this, from personal experience, is avoid. Because either there's something about Ewell that you don't know about and all the money's coming the other side, or it's one of those situations where all the money comes in the other side and it doesn't work out. To me, it's like a pass. And when you look at this fight, it's a pass-worthy fight.
Fair enough.
But we're in the business of giving people picks and our thoughts, and my thought is I would think Ewell would win, and it's not the worst price because it's only $8,300. He could finish this guy, not by virtue of he's a big power puncher, by virtue of this guy gets finished and can't take a great punch. Plus 105 is also dog money. Like there's some temptations there.
Kaboom. Well, that more or less wraps it up for us this week. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, that's about it. Good to try to get back into the rhythm of things.
9 straight weeks of UFC events coming up.
Yeah, well, that's why they gave us a little bit of a break, and now we got to get right back on it. Also, this week we've had Contender Series was on Tuesday, and then obviously we're going to have the card this weekend, and there's a Bellator card this weekend, and Kambache has got to stop releasing lines. Why? Because Addict Cody doesn't mind having a peek at those lines, okay? And it's not that they're bad lines, it's that I don't have time to research fucking these guys. I don't. I need to focus on my bread. I need to focus on the money maker.
The tape study for those cards are like literally people like 7 rows up in like a dusty arena in like Central America.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
and
you're
the
not-
fight's taking place in that dusty barn in Central
It's
America,
like my issue
so-
that I had a few weeks ago. It's just like, how good is Joel Alvarez on the ground? Because when I know that he's from Spain, but just being like, because any of the tape that you look at, it's just like there's a ring post right in the way. It's just like it's very hard to get a good sense of these things.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. So you're just like, oh man, he's got a good I played him because he's got a submission game. He's got you got triangles and arm bars and guillotines. I'm like, he'll probably submit this random Italian. And he did. But if that's not some random Italian, that's the problem, is that sometimes you just go, a lot of people I find, you look at 12 fight card, you look at there's a Bellator, you look at there's a Dana White Contender Series. A lot of times you'll just look at a sure dog and you'll say, oh, geez, a win, a loss, a win. You got to look at it, you know? Same thing with Dos Santos. You could say, Cody's saying this guy's chinny, but he went to decision with Nad Narimani. Yeah, but it's like, you got to watch the fight. He got fucked up by a guy who's like, not a world beater.
Chinny
by
may
any
be the
stretch.
wrong word because he
Not
took
chinny. It's that
his
the
striking
shot
defense
hurts
is
you.
abysmal. He
Yes.
just gets hit with everything.
Yeah, and then
Shot
and then,
straight
and then
down,
that's a bad
anything
way to
straight
fight.
down the pipe, which is exactly what Ewell does because he's super long and rangy. Everything down the pipe was just like boom, boom, boom. Like he was just eating it.
Yeah, that's going to be a massive problem here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
shouldn't say chinny because on one hand he could take a punch. On the other hand, he takes a pile of them and then eventually succumbs to it. So yeah, striking defense is the issue, not so much chin.
Yes, sir. All right, that wraps it up for us. Thank you to Cody Saftic for breaking down the fights with me. Thanks to producer Chad Dow for making the boards this week. Stock is rising on Chad Dow.
Oh, he made the boards.
He made the boards this week for
So
the
if there's
kid.
anything wrong with the board, please file the complaint to @PME because that is the complaint
Yeah,
department.
and at CH. Yeah, we talked to Chad about switching his account before.
Yeah, I'll tell you
confuses
something.
people.
Paul Shaughnessy used to be
At
Paul
at Shaughnessy. My last name was
Shaughnessy.
too long.
Shaughnessy. I'm the one that told you that. I was like, dog, ain't nobody's gonna punch in Shaughnessy.
These were back in the days.
How do you even
when-
spell this to somebody if they ask you to
when
spell
the
it really
tag
quick?
was part of the character limit too.
Right.
So that hurt too. You're not getting included in all the important Twitter
Who's
things.
gonna fucking punch that in? Now,
Exactly.
Paul Shag.
Paul Shag, people remember.
That's easy. So
Easy.
Chad Doe again.
Easy peasy. Either way. Thanks, Chad, for switching, doing all the directing here, doing all the good stuff and all the boards and stuff like that. For Cody and Chad, I'm Paul saying goodbye and good luck.
Mayo experience! Experience!